If you look at the faces on your money, you are going to see a lot of white faces. And that was why it was a very positive move just a couple of years ago, back in 2016, when then Secretary of the Treasury Jack Lew announced that the $20 bill would get a new face, Harriet Tubman, one of the most iconic Americans in the history of our country. And that was supposed to be coming up pretty soon. But it's not actually going to happen, apparently, because Donald Trump and his Treasury Secretary, Steven Mnuchin, have different ideas. Mnuchin was recently before the Senate, before the House, and Representative Ayanna Pressley was questioning him about this deadline. So take a look at what he said and also the way that he says it.
So yes or no, will you meet what was originally the 2020 redesign deadline? Yes or no?
Again, to be clear, the redesign that we are focused on at we will meet the security feature redesign in 2020. The imagery feature will not be an issue that comes up until most likely 2026.
And I'm just wondering if you could explain that to me, because after an exhaustive community process, where people who organized for quite some time, and you said you do share my sentiments and opinion that our currency should be more reflective of the contributions and the diversity of those contributions. So why the delay?
No, I didn't say that the currency should be reflective.
Well, you said imagery.
I said imagery, not referring to currency.
Okay, so do you believe that, do you support Harriet Tubman being on the $20 bill?
I've made no decision as it relates to that, and that decision won't be made in as I said,
but there was a community process. There was a community process.
Again, it's a decision of the Secretary of the Treasury. Right now, my decision is focused on security features.
Exactly. Yeah, he has different priorities there, and what you saw there, where he's trying to pretend that, oh no, I'm so swamped with all this security stuff. We need like 8 years to redo the image part of it, something that I'm pretty sure our graphics department can mock up later today if we needed to. That is the sort of incredibly petty racism that has become all too common in our government recently. You got like high-level racism institutionalized, like black people not being able to get loans for housing for a half century or longer. And then you have just, you know what? It would bother me to see Harriet Tubman's face on there. And I love Andrew Jackson, who she's going to replace. And so I'm simply not going to allow it. So Steve Mnuchin, angel of petty racism. But great work by Ayanna Pressley by pressing the issue and laying out the history of how we got to the point where we're supposed to have in just 2 years this redesign, and apparently I'm not going to. She tweeted about it afterwards saying, people other than white men built this country, and Secretary Mnuchin agrees, yet he refuses to update our currency. Harriet Tubman, Marian Anderson, Eleanor Roosevelt are iconic Americans, and it's past time that our money reflects that. Hashtag representation matters. And in this particular case, I mean, it is hard to come up with someone who better deserves to be, like, not specifically on the money, but seen, and for people to know about her contributions. Tubman was born into slavery, escaped, and then returned to the South, where she led other slaves to freedom. She was a Union scout during the Civil War and later advocated women's voting rights. Andrew Jackson, on the other hand, the current resident of the $20 bill, orchestrated the removal of Native Americans from lands to the east of the Mississippi River and sent them marching west on the so-called Trail of Tears. He was the architect of and there's competition, one of the lowest moments in our nation's history. He was a guy that was genocidally against some of the most victimized groups in American history, and he still has that spot. And this iconic, inspirational figure, can't really have her there. And if it seems like, why are you focusing on money? Like, this sort of representation matters, imagery matters. And very recently, just a couple of days ago, an image went viral on the internet that I think demonstrates this pretty well. Take a look at this Instagram post. And you're seeing there, the caption says, Lovey meets Harriet. There's a mural of Harriet Tubman done there, and you see a little girl walking up and holding hands with the image there. An image that you can see, thankfully, in murals like this, but not on the images that you carry around with you literally every day. And the gatekeeping on those sorts of common images is petty, but also consequential for representation. When we're talking about official images of the US government, Mnuchin not so interested, and Donald Trump certainly not interested, especially when it comes to protecting Andrew Jackson. Mr. Trump has frequently described Jackson, whose portrait hangs in the Oval Office, as a populist hero who reminds him of himself. 2 months into his presidency, Trump stopped to lay a wreath at Jackson's tomb at the Hermitage, his plantation in Nashville, and Trump said, it was during the revolution that Jackson first confronted and defied an arrogant elite. Does that sound familiar? Yes, arrogant elites definitely sound familiar. We've still got them in DC, literally to today. And by the way, I just want one last ironic sort of twist to this. Obviously, you have Harriet Tubman, who totally deserves the position. You have Andrew Jackson, who I would love to see banished from currency, let alone other things like that. But in particular, Jackson was opposed to the issuance of paper money by state and national banks. He only trusted gold and silver as currency and shut down the second bank of the United States in part because of its ability to manipulate paper money. And so a case could be made that his presence on paper money is an insult to his memory. And that is the only silver lining in this entire story, actually. Anyway, ridiculous. Hopefully this will be resolved, and hopefully before 2026 or 2028.
Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.